welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson. Always delighted when we have time to sit down with Congressman Cliff Bentz. He represents Oregon's 2nd Congressional District. He's in the district. Yesterday, you spoke out at the Eagle Point Veterans Cemetery. I understand you knocked him dead out there.
I've learned that if you have a story that you can share, that's a good approach, and so I did.
All right, so I only got you for one segment. I got up this morning, I thought, all right, so the congressman's going to be in here, and I thought, and you were speaking after Senator Wyden?
I did, yeah.
Okay, so I got to thinking about it. You got Senator Wyden, Senator Merkley, and Governor Kotek telling you basically the president is bankrupting the state. So how are you going to combat that?
Well, I'm going to say a state makes choices, and the state's been making Democrat choices for 40-some odd years, and it's starting to show, starting to wear pretty thin. And so the one great example of how sloppily approach, the really inappropriate and cavalier approach that the state has used is SNAP, the SNAP benefits, the food stamp benefits. And it's cost, the lack of care exercised by the state has cost the federal government something like $244 million in 1 year. And you can't have that. And what that shows, and those were overpayments. Those are basically the state saying, we know you're only supposed to get this much in SNAP benefits, but we're going to give you more. And no one paying attention.
Wow.
And so that's why those programs are skyrocketing cost and not necessarily going to those people who actually have worked for or need the benefit.
Okay, the big, beautiful bill got through the House by one vote.
One vote.
Goes over to the Senate, and the president, I think if I read correctly through the weekend, told the senators, do what you want, but get it passed. Am I overemphasizing?
Well, I don't think he quite said do what you want. I think he said that he understood that there might be some modest changes and that would be okay with him. Now, what has been said repeatedly by the Speaker, Mike Johnson, is, look, getting the bill passed by one vote illustrates the incredible challenge that goes with getting 220 people to agree on anything. And so we actually had 2 votes. One of my fellow colleagues missed the vote, which was unfortunate, but it was 4:30 in the morning. And so I don't know how many votes we'd had because we all stayed up all night to get that passed. But 1 vote, 2 votes, still awfully close.
What's your outtake, or your outlook, I should say, for the Senate? You think it'll get through?
Well, I give it a better than 50-50 chance, but everybody takes these positions. As you see Rand Paul, for example, taking those positions, and you go, is he blowing smoke, or is he really going to get on board? I think Rand Paul will vote no. I think ultimately, what they have 53 votes, they just need 51, so they can afford 2 no votes. And so we'll see. And Rand Paul is from Kentucky, just like Tom Massey. Tom Massey voted no over in the House. And my good friend, and I was on Judiciary with him for 4 years. I think it's sad that they vote no, because this is definitely a group effort. But my hope is it will get through the Senate, that there'll be very, very few changes. It'll come back to the conference committee, and we'll get it out of there.
Is it true that one of the motivators here, that if they don't pass this bill, then the tax cuts from the first administration of the Trump administration come to an end?
Part of them, the part that are not corporate. The corporate tax reduction from 36% down to 21% stays in place. But the individual taxes across the board go up, and they go up a lot. And so it's anticipated that if we don't pass this bill, we will lose 7 million jobs. It's anticipated, just because the skyrocketing taxes, as we go back to the way it was before they doubled the exemption and doubled the child tax credit, and all that goes away, and the damage to the economy would be very, very, very significant.
Back to home base here, one of the big concerns is, will we have enough money to fight wildfires? Now, mixed into that, as you well know, State Senator Jeff Golden passes this wildfire map, and then he says, oh, I don't like it anymore, and he rescinds it. In the meantime, people are losing insurance on their homes, the mess. And then on the flip side of that, the governor is crying for no money to fight wildfires. What's your response to that?
Well, first of all, one of the reasons I'm here is to go visit with the BLM and the Forest Service this afternoon and talk to them about exactly that issue, and go to anybody else that has a concern about what you're talking about, because it's hugely important to my district, frankly, all of Oregon. The amount of money that was reduced from the Forest Service did not affect the seasonal firefighters. That money is still there, and it's anticipated they're being hired as we speak. The money that's been reduced, to my knowledge, has not affected the people who contract to fight the fires. Grayback and others like that are still going to be available to fight these fires. But if someone has, anyone listening to your show this morning, which, by the way, thank you for inviting me to be here, I want them to call and reach out to our office and say, hey, this is a problem and these people aren't here and we need replacements, and we will immediately go to the White House and say we have a problem. So people this is serious business, and that's why, among other reasons, I'm here.
It appears that the president, after making these changes and cuts, then is available for rethinking and putting things back into place. Absolutely. We're slowly hearing that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, so hearing from people, but as you well know, this district has burned up 3 times.
Well, and there's a reason. There are reasons. One is that we've allowed too much fuel to accumulate in the forest. It's so simple yet so difficult to get in there and get the fuel out. And you have all of these environmental organizations yelling about, oh, you're taking out old growth timber, and at the same time, they're facilitating the destruction of that very timber. What are they thinking? And so, our hope is that in the great big beautiful bill, there is a feature. There are a number of features that will encourage people to enter into long-term contracts, 20-year contracts, to manage the forest. And so we hope it makes its way through the gauntlet, the bird bath, as it's called, after Senator Byrd, over in the Senate. And if it does, then maybe we'll be able to get back into the woods a little more effectively.
Okay, the other thing that keeps popping up, obviously the president's doing a great job at the border, but we come back to the Department of Education, very controversial, but he is moving in that direction in spite of the fact all these district courts are trying to stop him from getting out of bed in the morning.
There's some truth to that. Yeah.
What do you think about education?
Well, there's a very, very, very significant change to education in the Great Big Bill, and it's designed to try to stop the same type of kind of don't care that's been expressed by colleges. So when it comes to advancing students' money for loans, and this came up in the Oregon legislature where we were asking then, what are you doing, colleges, as you busily shovel out federal money to students so that you can take it right back for higher salaries? What are you doing to try to help protect the student from having so much debt they cannot possibly get out of it? What are you doing to try to protect the federal government from abuse of this program? So in the Great Big Bill, there are a number of changes that impose part of the risk of the loan on the university, on the college. And it says basically, if you don't get if this person you're teaching goes out and can't get a job to pay it back, then you, the college, are going to bear part of that risk. And
Interesting.
You can imagine how unpopular that is among colleges.
Well, they may think about what they're giving degrees into.
And they may think about explaining what a loan really is to the students.
Yeah, what a thought.
Yeah, what a thought.
All right, I want to come back to these rogue district judges doing what they're doing. It appears this might be an ambiguity in the system, in that they were allowed to go outside their district and influence something on the national scale, which de-emphasizes the word district. I understand that Congress has the power to give the authority to the district or to re-emphasize that. Do you see any move in Congress to do just that?
Yes. We voted on a bill that Congressman Darrell Issa from Southern California brought. And he's a good friend, and he's in judiciary, and he's the head of the subcommittee that deals with courts, which I was on until January, when I moved over to Energy and Commerce. And Darrell brought a bill to modify the power of a single judge to affect or implement a restraining order across the entire United States. He brought a bill. I voted for it. And it basically said if you're going to do this, you have to have a panel of 3 judges. So you don't have one single judge saying, I'm going to exercise my power as a federal judge, and this decision I am making will extend across the entire United States, far beyond my district. And the good news is the bill did make its way across the floor of the House. Where it goes next is a real question.
So then why use the term district if you're not going to emphasize that district only?
Well, I think probably it's a constitutional issue. That'd be my guess. And since I wasn't on Judiciary at the time, even though we had discussed that bill 2 years ago, I don't have a good answer for that. I would just say I kind of like Darrell's bill. That's why I voted for it, because it seems to me that having 3 people looking at it as opposed to one reduces the chance of a political approach.
So am I correct in saying that Congress controls the jurisdiction of that district court, but the actual case itself can be appealed all the way to the Supreme Court?
That is correct. And that's the answer many people will give. They say, well, okay, great. The judge should have that power to implement or impose his order or her order across the entire United States. If you don't like it, appeal. Well, sure, if you have all the money in the world and all the time in the world, and what happens while you're busy doing it, because the order in us generally stays in place. And so it's extremely expensive to go in and try to unwind something like that.
Tariffs, controversial, but they seem to be working. They look like they're a tool to bring people to the table. Pros and cons, what's your thoughts?
Well, tariffs are, they're a dangerous two-edged weapon.
Right.
And so I'm very happy that we have an experienced negotiator in the form of President Trump to manage this device, because he's been there, he's done that, he's on a scale he's never been on before, but he's not afraid of negative consequences incurred in an effort to get to a better place, and that's what he's doing. But there's no doubt that those tariffs are negatively affecting many of the people in my district, and it's expensive. It's an expensive thing. Ask a wheat farmer, or ask a nursery operator who had contracts with Canada that instantly were terminated after those first tariffs were imposed on Canada. So there's going to be, I think, a good outcome. I think it's worth the risk, but there's going to be a lot of people, particularly the smaller people, who are going to pay a very heavy price.
Are your voice of advocacy in behalf of your district and a small farmer being heard?
Well, they're definitely being heard. Whether there's any particular consequence can be debated, but there is a provision in the great big bill that will increase the reference price on wheat by about $1, from about $5 and some cents to $6 and some cents. So that's a help to the wheat farmers, because the way that these other countries operate is they look at us after we do something and they instantly impose barriers to our wheat. And they do that because wheat states have 2 senators. And of course,
no, I get it. You sense it and feel it, especially on the West Coast. I don't know why gas prices on the West Coast are still high, and on the East Coast they're really cheap.
Well, I certainly fought the good fight against cap and trade and other clean fuel standards. That's why California is, $2 a gallon higher than any place else, and Oregon $1, and going higher. And so, so many things to be said about that, most of them negative when it comes to those kind of programs.
Okay. Quickly, the president's doing everything he can diplomatically to stop Iran from enriching uranium, knowing that it probably won't happen. Do you feel in Washington there's a sense that we're going to get involved in doing something with Iran militarily?
Well, certainly it's being discussed, but not on my committees, because I'm not on armed force. I'm not on those military focused committees. But there's definitely conversations about what to do in that space. Ultimately, it's going to be up to the executive branch. Ultimately, they will discuss matters with Congress, but ultimately it's going to be up to the executive branch. And I'd hate to speculate, because I'm not on those committees. I'm just not.
I know you got your hands full. What's driving your boat the most?
What's the most important?
Yeah.
Well, right now, fire is probably the most important here. Transportation is hugely important, and to that end, I've been discussing with your city leaders and others here your south interchange, because I think that's a hugely important thing for seismic issues and frankly for the expansion of this this beautiful area. So I've been focusing on that. Met 3 times now with the U.S. Department of Transportation in discussing exactly that. What will happen is unclear. There's so many things to talk about with water. Once you have rain, then no one talks about it anymore. But guess what? Another year's coming. So of course water is huge. Daycare is huge. I'm meeting with tax professionals this afternoon in my office, and I'm looking forward to those meetings so we can talk about the extremely positive impacts of some parts of the Great Big Bill on your local community, because it is very positive. And so I'm looking and trying to keep our businesses up and going and improving is super important to me.
Well, you're busy. Thank you for the short time you've given us today. Are you in the district till when?
Catch the plane back this afternoon, and then I have a farm, a small one, back over on the eastern edge of the state. I look at it now when I go back, and it's very sad. So I'll be spending a few days on it, and then back to D.C.
Okay, you can contact the Congressman, Bentz, bentz.house.gov. That's the website. Thanks for coming in, Congressman.
I'm so
Thanks
happy.
for your time. Good to see you. All right,
Thank you.
we'll be right back.